Barry woke up in a room with no memory of how he got there. His joints ached and he felt strange. He saw a camera up in the wall, staring right at him. Then suddenly, two men walked into the room. One man said, "Hello, Barry. Relax. You will be given a full explanation why you're here in just a short time, but there are a few things you need to sort out yourself first. You need to just relax and try your best to remember anything you can that has happened to you before you woke up today. It doesn't have to be recent, anything at all." Barry felt the question bizarre and was about to say something when he felt kind of dizzy, and suddenly he blanked out. As he did, he had a memory of a person speaking, but he could not make out who it was. He tried his best to look at the face, hoping he could make out the features, but it was no good. The face was just a blur. When he snapped out of his daze, the man spoke to him again. "Did you remember anything, Barry? It is very, very important that you remember anything at all before we fill you in." Barry said, "What am I doing in this room? Who are ye? What do ye want with me?" The man spoke again. "Barry, we will give you all the answers to that in a very short time, but for now, we really need you to remember anything at all, because it is vital you do before we give you the information you were requesting." Barry could feel himself get dizzy again, and once again he could see the face, but it was just a blur still. He wondered who the person was, knowing that's probably what the weird man is asking him. Who is that person that is so blurry to him? It was driving him crazy. When he snapped out of his daydream again, the man asked, "Do you remember anything, Barry? What is it you see when you black out?" Barry said, "I see a face, but it's a blur. I can't make out who it is." The other man spoke this time. "You're doing great, Barry, but before we tell you what is happening, you need to see that face. You're not ready to hear the truth until you do." Suddenly Barry blacked out again, and he could see a person walking towards him, but the person was still a blur, until suddenly the blur became clear, and he was looking at the face, and realized he was looking at himself. He said to the men, "It's me. That person who was a blur is me." The man said, "That's good, Barry. You were in a good state when you realized that is you. Barry, you paid a large amount of money in the year 2020 to a secret government organization to do to you what is happening right now. And I have all the paperwork to show you that you've given your full consent. You will get a shock when I'm about to tell you what I'm about to tell you, but believe me, we are only doing what you paid for. The year is 2220. You were 200 years into the future from when you were frozen, and the information was passed down generations to you beyond frozen in the year 2220. Barry, you nearly didn't make it, but the problem is, Barry, no one else has except us and maybe 100 more. The world experienced an apocalypse after World War III happened just a few months after you were frozen in the year 2020. We had this bunker specially built, and the elite in the government survived also. The world is no longer like it was, Barry. We had to start again. I am sorry you woke up to a world like this. They didn't get frozen, Barry. You are the only one who did get frozen. That's the one thing I was trying to figure out. But the other survivors, well, they were the elite. The big, huge government officials, the president, and everyone else. They had their doomsday bunkers. They were the lucky ones. But even with that, there are now only about just over 100 of us left. This world is in ruins. This world is no way anywhere near the world I read about in history like it was before World War III started. 10 minutes later, Barry exited the bunker to see what the world looked like, and what he saw was a city in wreck and ruin. Suddenly he had another blackout. He could see himself talking to an elderly man. The man spoke. "I will do this for you, Barry, as I don't have much time to live with my crippling disease. Once you're in the bunker and safe and frozen, I will detonate the biggest nuclear missile this world has ever seen." Barry suddenly snapped out of his flashback. The man was standing next to him. "This city you were looking at was built about 195 years ago. There were about 10,000 survivors in the bunkers then, just after World War III ended. But unfortunately, not many are left. And unfortunately, people aren't in a rush to bring new life into this world. Would you blame them? By the way, Barry, what made you decide you wanted to get frozen until the year 2220? Barry couldn't tell the real answer, so just said, "I can't remember." My wife and I bought a house that was quite cheap for the area, and that was 2 years ago. We have 2 daughters together. At first, everything was fine, and nothing out of the ordinary ever happened. Then one day we would find every chair, pot, jar and other household objects all divided into 2 corners. One corner of the household objects had a red mark on them, while the other half of household objects had a blue mark. We tried putting things back to where they were supposed to go, but everything ended up being divided into their corners again. Then one day I awoke with a blue mark on my arm, and same with my oldest daughter. We both found ourselves with the other household objects that also had a blue mark on them. My wife and my youngest daughter had a red mark on them, and they awoke alongside the household objects that had a red mark on them as well. We then brought in a psychic, and she told us that the spirits from the married couple who used to live in this house are now finally divorcing in the afterlife. They have split up everything 50-50 and marked them red and blue. Red is for the deceased husband, and the blue is for the deceased wife. My wife and I looked at each other, as we both knew we would be taken away. We knew we had to get out of this house or sell it as quick as possible. Then one day, some of the household objects that were divided into red and blue had disappeared. Our daughters were part of the disappearance. The 2 spirits are slowly taking their 50-50 divorce splits. Me and my wife are just waiting for us to get taken now.
Hi, this is Kate Valentine. I'm responding about the request you put on the police auction materials. I bought a few kids' books from that auction, actually a whole crate of them. At the time, I didn't look at them, I just put them on the bargain shelf in order of the author's names. I had never heard of the author or the book title, so I gave them all orange stickers, which meant 50 cents each. One day, it was particularly dead, so I paged through them, and I noticed this one with very simple, minimalistic drawings called Dave's Days. There was no cohesive story. Unlike other children's books that use each page as a part of a lesson, here there was none of that. One page was the Dave character sitting at a kitchen table with a mug in front of him. He was the kind of stick figure you see on bathroom doors. Dave's kitchen was written in block letters above him. The whole book was like that. Just Dave, sitting alone in one setting or another. The park, the library. I put the book away and looked through the others and found another one in the Dave series. This one was called Dave and His Friends. The cover was Dave outside his house, like the first, but next to him stood a little girl with a blonde ponytail. 2 boys and a girl, all brown-haired with freckles, looked out from the window inside the house. This book was all about Dave and these kids doing things together and going places like to the park and getting ice cream. Every time Dave did something nice for them, they'd say, "Dave is my friend." But since no one has a mouth and therefore no one is smiling, it only makes the whole thing odd, like when you read a happy text message without an exclamation mark. I put the book away. Later that night, I decided to Google the titles of the books. When I got nothing, I just Googled the things in the book, and eventually I Googled the phrase, "Dave is my friend." An article came up. It was about a girl named Jennifer Holland who had gone missing sometime earlier and about how her parents hadn't given up hope. It also alluded to police being suspicious of them as the circumstances of her disappearance were strange. They said they woke up to find their front door open and Jennifer gone. 2 things really struck me from the article. The first was that the last name Holland seemed significant. I couldn't remember why until I went back to the Dave books and saw that Dave lived in Hollandtown. The second thing, I'll get to that in a sec. After hours of searching for more information, I stumbled across a forum. I don't remember where, maybe on Reddit, but one subject said, "Has anyone read Dave and the Others?" It was a guy with the handle Oregon Ollie who had found an eerily similar book. The post was 2 years old. Later, I searched for Oregon Ollie, but his account was inactive. When he Googled the book, he didn't find anything either. But, like me, he started Googling everything in the book and found a news story, just like I had. 3 siblings had been found dead at Chipewyan Lake in Canada. They lay on the shore, holding hands. Their last name was Robin. They died from exposure. Mr. and Mrs. Robin woke up in the middle of the night by a cold wind the night their kids went missing. The door had been left wide open. It was January. The police found a note at the Robin home left by the kids, but the article said the investigators would not release the contents to the public. Oregon Ollie said that in his book, there were 3 red robins that would fly over Dave's head when he got sad. The book was mostly a man walking the city sidewalks at night or sitting at a park bench alone with the stars over him. Whenever Dave seemed sad, the robins would come and fly over his head, and he would just look up and watch. The second thing that I mentioned earlier that struck me in the first article I read was that Jennifer Holland had drawn a picture before she went missing. It was of a stick figure man and herself, her parents didn't know what it was. She had written, "Dave is my friend," on it. I don't have the books anymore. I went back through them after reading Oregon Ollie's account, and seeing those 3 kids in the window of Dave's house freaked me out, so I threw them away. I still think about it, though. Sometimes I wish I kept them, but the thought of having them near me gives me the chills. I wasn't going to mention this, but after I read the Reddit account, I wrote my own post about it. No one ever picked up on it, but right after that, I started getting phone calls. When I answered, I would hear some electrical buzzing, but that was it. First, the calls were just at my house, but then I got them on my cell and even at work. Slowly, it died down, but I still get them from time to time. The last thought that crosses my mind when I lock my doors at night is, I wonder if it's Dave calling me. And I wonder if he's there somewhere, watching my house when I go to bed. Sometimes I move my bureau in front of the door just to be safe.
Yeah!